So our speaker today is PMH Atwater. And in 1978, PMH Atwater was the pioneer in near-death research studies. With the after effects of spiritual experiences, transformations of consciousness, reality shifts, future memory, modern generations, NDE children, and how they differ from previous generations of having experiences. In 2005, PMH Atwater was awarded the Outstanding Service Award from the International Association of Near-Death Studies Lifetime Achievement Award from the national, and then she was the Outstanding Service with IANDS. Then the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists, an honorary Ph.D. from a school in Sri Lanka. Other awards followed. Ms. Atwater has presented twice at the United Nations and has been a guest on many TV and radio shows, including George Norrie and Art Bell. Her books have been translated into over 12 different languages. Her title beside her near-death experience researcher and author, Reverend Atwater, has been a prayer chaplain since 2004. Ms. Atwater retired as an active field worker in near-death studies in 2010, calling the entire field to recognize near-death studies as part of a larger genre of transformations of consciousness and how they change people. Ms. Atwater retired as an active field worker in near-death studies in 2010, calling, okay, we just read that. So I don't know why that's that way. So let's go over some of her books. She has so many books, and I wanted to, you can tell us in a minute how many books you do have, but she's written many books. I was just reading one last night, The Big Book of Near-Death Experiences. That's a good one. I like that. Forever Angels, the Animal Light series of children's books, A Manual for Developing Humans, Dying to Know You, and of course, The Big Book of Near-Death Experiences, Future Memory, Children of the Fifth World, NDEs, The Rest of the Story, I Died 3 Times in 1977. Coming to Life, Beyond the Indigo Children, We Live Forever, The New Children and NDEs, Beyond the Light, Children of the New Millennium, and The Goddess Ruins. So without further ado, PMH, yay, yay.
I did not retire.
I don't know why. This is, I mean, you're going, you don't retire. Well, anyway, you know, I don't know. And I can't say you're not as busy as you are, because you from what I see, you're as busy as you always have been. Yeah. So, but, and I wanted to mention our topic today, which we just, you know, this topic can morph. I'm fine with that. Whatever PMH wants to do is what you seldom ever heard about NDEs. So, you know, we're just going to have fun with this. We'll go through it, and when it seems appropriate, I'll open it up for questions. And just real quick before the questions, I think that the best way, if you look under Manage Participants, you guys, at the bottom, you can see where to raise your hands, and there's a little hand raising icon. It's like, hey, and then we'll put you in the queue when it's question time. So go ahead, PMH. Let's you have the floor.
Well, you know, I'd like to play with this subject for a little time. Play with it in the sense that I'd like to sort of focus on some of the things we don't talk about. And among those would be breath. Over these 44 years that I've been researching, I have found invariably that near-death experiencers, after their experience, will go through periods of time when they're not breathing, but they're feeling fine, they're doing well, they talk, they walk, they eat, whatever, but they're not breathing. That is to say, no air is going in and out of the nose. The lungs are not working. And sometimes that will be maybe 5 minutes, sometimes it's a couple of minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's longer than that. And I was puzzled about that for myself, because remember, I'm an experiencer too.
Right.
And I was noticing that, hey, this is interesting. I'm going through life and I'm not breathing. And so I was living then in Boise, Idaho. And Boise, Idaho is like at the bottom of a cup. And around Boise, Idaho are what we call benches, or they're the sides of the cup. And they go up, you know, quite a bit. And I was up on the second bench, the higher part of the second bench, and I was coming into town, and I was driving on Vista Boulevard, which is a big boulevard. And I was looking at the clock, the car clock, and I'm not breathing. So this time I'm thinking, I'm going to time this. So I'm in high traffic. It's nearly noon. I'm going down Vista Boulevard, which is a large boulevard, lots of cars, going through the lights. Vista Boulevard sort of dead ends, if you will, at the Capitol building. So I'm going down, I'm going around the Capitol building, and then I'm going out State Street toward Floating Feather Airport. And finally I looked at my clock, and it's a little over 10 minutes, and I'm still not breathing. No air. Nothing is happening with the lungs. The lungs are quiet, they're not doing a thing. And I thought to myself, okay, seems to me like our bodies need air, especially our brain. Seems to me like we need air. So I pulled my car over to the side of the road, parked it, and went into a deep meditation. And in that meditation, I visualized my lungs, and I went into my lungs, and I huffed and I puffed, and I, you know, and you know, I got them to breathing again. I got air in there, and came out of the meditation, and now I'm breathing normal, like a normal human being. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, this happened to me. I'm seeing this with a lot of other people too. So I started paying more attention to near-death experiencers, especially after their experience. You know, they go through these periods where there's just no breathing. I didn't really catch on to this until a couple of years ago. And I want to tell you a quick little story here. A couple of years ago, I live now near Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was out in the back trimming a tree. And I was up on a ladder. I had my big trimming shears, and I'm leaning over to, you know, finish trimming the top of the tree. And I have this feeling, this sense, it's time to back off. Don't do it. So I started to back off, and I fell off the ladder. I really didn't fall off, I sailed off. I sailed clear across the air. I mean, it's just like, wow, that was an interesting trip. Look, I can fly. And I landed on soft grass at the only place I could land without killing myself, because to the left was hard wood, and I would have, you know, really hurt myself. To the right was metal, and big chunks of metal, and I surely would, you know, have killed myself there, or at least broke my neck. So I landed in the only place I could land. And when I landed, it wasn't down. It was sort of, part of me was on the ground and the other part of me was up. And I was frozen. I couldn't move. And I was very much aware of something going on inside of my body. Something was taking over. And that something I later learned is the vagus nerve. Let me talk a little bit about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of the most important nerves in our body, if not the most, because it connects all the major organs in the body. It connects them all. The job of the vagus nerve is to take, if you're in trauma, to take all of the blood from the extremities and pull it under the heart. So it's bringing all the blood from all of your body, it's pulling it around the heart. And then it's breathing. It's breathing to make sure that your brain will still function. So it is breathing for you. Now, the lungs are not breathing. It is the vagus nerve that is doing the breathing. And if you don't cooperate, it will force you to pass out. In other words, the vagus nerve at that moment in time is supreme. It takes over because its job is to make sure you live. So after studying the vagus, by the way, nothing was broken. After studying the vagus nerve, I made a match. Be with me as I talk about the match I made. Invariably, with child experiencers, especially if they had a drowning, they'll say, I could breathe down there. I could breathe in the water. Invariably, you talk about people who have various kinds of near-death experiences, especially out and about, not in a hospital. And they'll talk about, I could still breathe. After the near-death experience and you're back again, people will talk about periods of time when they're not breathing. Mine went on for a whole year. Ladies and gentlemen, I would submit to you, the vagus nerve is the organic or human counterpart to the silver cord. I truly feel and believe through my research, Dr. Karen Herrick has also done a lot of work on this, Dr. Karen Herrick in Red Bank, New Jersey, that indeed the vagus nerve is a physical component to the silver cord. There are very few near-death experiencers that see a cord of any kind, very few. There's a few, but very few. The reason I don't think we see that cord at all is that the vagus nerve is taken over or something like that is going on. Bear in mind that there's not that many near-death experiences that occur in hospitals. There's only like maybe 12 to 27% occur in hospitals. Rest of them are out in nature or maybe an EMT crew and a wreck, or something is going on. That's when the near-death experience is occurring. It's not occurring in the hospital. We get this idea that it's always in a hospital, and that's because of the media. And it's ever so easy for the media to have this kind of drama in the hospital because it's cheaper for them to produce that kind of show. It's easier for them to produce this kind of show. So we have this idea that near-death experiences are always happening during surgery or after surgery, or it's in the hospital, and that's not true at all. Also because of the media, we have this idea of the tunnel. Please, very few people experience a tunnel. Some do, of course, but very few do. And the media sensationalized Raymond Moody's first book because of the tunnel. When Gallup Poll first did their research on tunnels, I think it was about, what was it, 1982 or somewhere in there, only 9% of the people ever talked anything at all about a tunnel. So we know over time that it's less than a third, maybe even less than that, do have a tunnel. Of course, some do. I didn't in either of my three. And the other thing I want to just kind of play with here and talk about, because we don't talk about these kinds of things, and that is cupboards and doors and windows. The average near-death experiencer wants either the windows open, or they want the kind of shades that are really white or lacy, or somehow allow a lot of light in, and they like their cupboard doors open, or they like their closet doors open, and they like, doors open, lots of light. And it's really funny in our house, because my husband Terry loves romantic meals, the idea of a candlelight and all this kind of stuff. And I go around flipping the switches on the lights, and I say, and God said, let there be light. And he's going, groan. To me, that he wants it romantic, but for me, I want God, light. Please bear in mind that most of us either died or nearly died. We want things open. It's the idea of the coffin. Whether you have that image in your mind or not, you respond to that kind of imagery anyway. It's sort of it's sort of part of the media and being a human being and movies and all this kind. When we think of death, we think of a coffin. And near-death experiencers, whether they realize it or not, sort of respond to this idea of, we don't want to be in a coffin, or we don't want to be in the ground, or we're somehow responding to that idea of darkness. So we're just automatically bringing in light and opening the doors. That's natural for a near-death experiencer. We do a lot of these natural things, and we don't ever think that it's because we're a near-death experiencer that we do that. And I just want to share one of these little quirks of my own. One of the things I went through, and maybe the rest of you relate to this and maybe not, but some of us, and I think a fair amount of us, really go through real trauma. And the idea of that we either did die or nearly died, and it was traumatic and it was painful and it was really a big deal. We almost died, good heavens. And even though we slipped right through the curtain, and we were just in this world. And we know this world, we know this light, we know this vibration. We know who we are. And it's wonderful. When you come back, you've got to animate that body again. Bring that body back. And for some of us, that's a big deal in that it's painful. And for me, it was very painful. Painful in the sense that I had to relearn how to crawl. I had to relearn how to stand, climb stairs, walk, tell the difference between left and right, hear properly, see properly, and rebuild all my belief systems. It was just, for me, really big. And for a period of time, I didn't really care that the other side was better. All I knew was I'm on this side and it hurts like hell. I'm in a lot of pain. What am I going to do about this pain? What am I going to do about the scare of not being able to go back to my job? I had no other source of income, sort of like we're going through now with the COVID-19, so many people thrown out of work. I was facing that kind of wall. And my husband and I had previously divorced, my former husband. So I had 3 children, 2 of them were grown, but one of them still at home. What am I going to do? So I was dealing with a lot of fear and a lot of pain. And I just want to share a couple of things that I went through. I just couldn't put myself in any kind of place that made any kind of sense. So for a period of time, while I was dealing with the worst of it, the only logical sentence I could say was, God is. And I would chant that hour after hour. And that's what kept me sane. I also want to share with you this litany that I made up. Actually, it's sort of based on another litany that's found in the book Dune by Frank Herbert, science fiction book. That's why I first heard of the litany of fear, but for some reason, I rewrote it. I don't know why, I just rewrote it, and mine fit better. Had more of an effect. So I just want to share this with you now, not just because you're a near-death experiencer, but we're all going through the COVID-19 kind of stuff. And so we're dealing with periods of fear or concern, whether we admit it or not. And some of us a lot. So I want to share this with you. I call it the litany of fear. Fear is the mind killer. It is the little death. I will face my fear. It will pass over me, around me, and through me. And when it is gone, I will remain. The power of that litany, gave me courage, enabled me to see through trauma, and it enabled me to keep my sanity. I don't know about the rest of you, but I had these incredible things happen to me too. I had 3 in 3 months. Yes, 3 in 3 months. I look back at it and I call it the heavenly sledgehammer effect. That doesn't tell you how stubborn I was, I don't know what will. Oh, yes, the heavenly sledgehammer effect. So I had 3 in 3 months. Sort of a quick aside here. I was a bank analyst at the time, and I had decided to become a bank manager. So I put myself in, I was taking classes with the American Banking Institute, and I was going to be a bank manager, and I was raped, became pregnant, and it was the miscarriage and all that happened in the miscarriage that caused my death. I had 2 in January 1977. I had 1 in March of 1977. And then later that, the first 2 were in December, then in March. And then later that fall, I had 3 major relapses, one of which was total adrenal failure. So I went through a lot of relearning what life is, relearning what cooking is, what dishes are, what food is. I didn't know. I had no idea. Being a mother, a child. What do you mean that? A child? I even went so far as to mail off to the major makers of pots and pans to get their metallurgical report and their manufacturing specs, and then I had them tested at a local lab. And after that, I decided what pots and pans I would use. So I threw out anything with a nickel bottom, and I, had Faberware and different kinds of dishes and pots and pans. After that, I threw away sheets, soaps. I just researched and studied what they were, what their ingredients were, and I was tossing all kinds of things because I just needed to re-identify everything, what works, what doesn't. And I'll tell you one funny thing I did. I have a son and 2 daughters. Son is first. A year later, Natalie, and many years later came Polly. So my son is gone, and the 2 girls are still home. And I had this favorite winter coat. I mean, I love this winter coat. And I wore it and wore it until, the lining was shred bare. This coat was a good friend of mine. And so obviously my coat has died. So what do you do with a good friend who's died? You hold a funeral service. So I did. I had a funeral service for my coat. Saw me doing it. And they pointed fingers and said, crazy. And I did not know. I did not know where they were coming from. I just looked at him and thought, well, this is what you do when a friend dies. You bury your friend. For a long time, I couldn't tell the difference between this world and the other worlds because I was in and out. And to me, everything was alive. And by the way, I'm still that way. Everything's your wall. I mean, you can have really great conversations with your wall. And still to this day, when I cook, I ask the food what it wants to do, and we both have fun. So yeah, I still do that. The world is just so different, and for me, well, the reason I did the research, and you need to understand this to understand me, I guess, is in my 3rd near-death experience, I was told by what I call the voice like none other. No, wasn't it guide or guardian or archangel or none of that. Just forget about that. It was a voice so big, so huge. It was bigger than the universe. It was just massive. And that voice said, and I quote, "Test revelation. You are to do the research. One book for each death." Then it showed me what that meant. It did not name book one. I kind of think book one was coming back to life, but I don't know. Book two is future memory. Book three is a manual for developing humans. Both of those books are done. They're out there. Then I'm on my own. You know, that's it. I got my marching orders. That's it. And maybe you kind of relate to this a little bit, some of you. Nothing really would work with me. So during the getting well period, so I took myself out of the care of allopaths, that is to say MDs, because I was getting worse and worse and worse. And I put myself into the care of a naturopath, and I chose to go nature's way. And that was a good decision, except that I kept getting worse going that direction also. I mean, seriously worse. To the point that my doctor, the naturopath, and a couple of friends of mine decided that what I needed was a change of scenery. I mean, this is the nature's way, so what I need is a change of scenery. Can you imagine the doctor getting up at 5 in the morning to give me a shot in my medication so that my friends could truck me up to Seattle, Washington? We've got somebody here from Seattle. You know, you're going to know this. Truck me up to Seattle, Washington, to the Seattle Center. And there was being held a symposium. It was called the Mind Miraculous Symposium. And the great speakers, you know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and Dr. Blue Joy and on and on and on. Uri Geller was there. But the first speaker paid my way. And that was Dr. William Tiller, a physicist from Stanford. And his talk was The Eternal Now. And he was convinced that all things happen at the same time in the same place, that simultaneity could be proved or shown through physics in a chart. And I don't know how many have been to Seattle Center, but the big view screen there is like 5 stories tall. I mean, massive. So he shows up to all the world to see his math, that is to say, his drawing of what the eternal now really looks like. And it was exactly what I had seen in my third near-death experience. And I jumped up and I ran out of that auditorium and I collapsed under wall lights. And I just grabbed my legs and I'm a baby again. And I'm just saying, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He saw it too. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. And from that moment on, I got well. The next year, I'm a human being again with full mind and ready to do my research. Bear in mind, I'm a cop's kid. I was raised in a police station in Twin Falls, Idaho. So, I grew up with police officers. I grew up with interrogations. I grew up with the bad guys and the good guys. I grew up with that. So I used that to do my research. Nobody told me how to do anything. I never went to anybody. Nobody paid a dime for anything I've done in 44 years. If I needed money, I went to work. But I did my research, and I did it like a good cop, a cop on the beat. And I got into people's homes. I talked to their caregivers. I talked to their families. It's never enough to just talk to the experiencer. Never. Never enough. You must look past that, because we don't always know how we're being seen by others, how our words are coming across. I have never, ever in 44 years met a single experiencer who knew or recognized how much they have changed. For the average adult, it takes about 7 to 10 years to grasp it. For the average kid, 20 to 40 years. Children don't integrate, they compensate. They fit back into society. They don't integrate back into society. Adults do, kids don't. Especially if they're little, because kids have no before. They have nothing to compare anything to. An adult does, a kid doesn't. Yeah, I was literally the cop walking the beat. And because of that, certainly I got a lot of criticism over time. And I won't go into that. Got a lot of that. I won't go into that. What people don't know, and where I feel called to go next, is my life from birth to when I died, and what I was doing then. And just a little bit, I could see angels and fairies and played with them, and I was always singing to the worms, and just having these great experiences with a little child. And this was the time of Pearl Harbor. I'm going to school, and here's all these gold stars that the government gives to you if someone dies in the war effort from your family, so that you can take that gold star decal and put it on your living room window so all the world can see your sacrifice. So when I'm walking to school, I'm walking to buy all these gold stars. And who'd have think a little town like Twin Falls, Idaho would have so many deaths, but we did. We lost a lot of our people in World War II. And so I'm having to walk by all these gold stars. And kids know what's going on. Those are death stars. And this one particular place, home, this one particular morning, there were 6 new gold stars in that window overnight. And I stood there and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. I cannot remember a single day. In all of my first grade, when I didn't have to stop my sobs and shudders just to walk in the door of my first grade classroom. That was my first grade. That was compounded by what a lot of child near-death experiencers and adults come to deal with, and that's synesthesia. Synesthesia is an elaboration of the limbic system in the brain, your senses. That is to say, the senses then blend or come in multiples. And I was the only kid in the first grade class who could smell, color, see music, and hear numbers. Well, I was telling the truth, and everybody thought I was lying. So I spent most of the first grade on a tall stool in front of the class, having to wear a tall conical hat that said dunce on it, as an example of a bad child who told lies. And my mother was called in twice by the principal. He kept trying to kick me out of school. Mother wouldn't let him. So at the end of the first grade, I was so angry that I just decided to do my own research myself. And I was going to find out what this world is and what makes it and who people are and how they walk and how they talk and why. And I was going to do this by myself. So that's when I first started researching. The first grade, the anger that I was filled with after the first grade became my motif, my protocol. Not in the sense of anger, but in the sense of, I've got to know why. You know, I can do things. Can you do them? I want to know why you can do them, how you do them. You know, I want to know everything I can. So it's that push, that it is that energy, that thrust, that curiosity that has driven my work. I've got 18 books out now. You want to get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com. You might want to subscribe to my free monthly newsletter. The May issue just went out today. So if you get on my website, get over to newsletters, there is an archive. So you want to archive May issue and read the one for today that just went out. But I warn you, I warn everybody, my newsletter is only for the curious. Yeah, if you're not curious, you won't like my newsletter. But if you're curious about all kinds of things, this entire world we live in, all of it, you'll love my newsletter. So I've been yakety-yakking far too much.
Absolutely not. This is fascinating. I mean, wow. Do you mind if we kind of start having some fun with some questions?
Sure.
I have a question right off the bat, not to be, but question, and I don't know how to, about dimensions, and maybe other people can elaborate on this. And real quick, when you have questions, go into manage participants and raise your hands, and then I'll get you as it, hopefully first come, first serve. Okay, so dimensions. In a couple of my near-death experiences, I saw different dimensions happening all at once. I have not been able to answer this. Okay, hold that there. Then I have another one that's, I've had like 300 hours of past life. So honestly, there really is no such thing as past life. So what does this really mean? The other thing is, okay, hold that there, past life, seeing between different dimensions, all happening at the same time, different periods that are different time periods happening. Well, I'm in one, but I'm seeing them all happening at the same time. So you got that. different, the past life question mark. Then you have, what is this thing with multiverses and different, are there different versions of us all happening at the same time? And is it all simultaneous?
Yes. Now, let, let me give you a couple of references here. First of all, you want to get my little book that I self-published. It's called I Died 3 Times in 1977, The Complete Story.
Okay.
That off Amazon. It will
Okay.
not cost you very much. It's a cheap book.
Okay, so okay, good.
And then you want to get Future Memory. Now, let me caution you. Future Memory is not a book. It looks like a book, but it's not a book.
Okay.
It is a labyrinth. Every sentence, every paragraph, every page is part of the math I used to create the labyrinth. I was shown by the voice like none other how to do this. Future Memory is a real labyrinth. So when you start reading the book, it's like starting your walk through the labyrinth. It will twist on you and turn just like a labyrinth does. Do not skip read. If you do, the book will not hold for you, and you'll wonder why I wrote such a dumb book. You have to stay on the path, and that will answer, or at least show, a lot of this kind of thing, and show you about time. In my various books, I don't remember which ones anymore because I wrote so many. I quote the work of George Meek.
Mm-hmm.
George Meek was, he worked for IBM, he was an inventor, and when he retired, his goal was to find out how many dimensions there are. And he identified 12. 12 going up, 12 going down. When I say up and down, what I found in my research is this idea of heaven and hell. That as we get more and more light, mm-hmm. and the energy goes faster and faster, those are the higher realms. As we get less and less light and energy becomes sluggish and slows down, that's where we get the lower realms.
I understand this.
Some people call the higher realms heaven. Some people call the lower realms hell. There is no top, there is no bottom. In other words, you're not going to float forever in the sky playing a harp, and you're not going to suffer forever in hell in some kind of dungeon. That's not true. What is true is that we go through these different lights and speeds, and then leave any idea of vibration or worlds. We can go the same way and feel like we're kind of stuck, but we're not. If you're on my website, go to charts. There's a section called charts.
Okay.
I did a chart of heaven and hell. What the heavenly worlds show us or enable us to go through are those periods that enhance us and build us and help us to open up, or those levels that twist us and squeeze us until we get to that point where it's difficult to even be us. At any point, up or down, we can change our direction. At any point, we can alter the process. We are never stuck. We just think we are. We've been told we are by various religions, various belief systems, various shamans. Yeah, I don't care who you go to. We've been told about these different levels and who's the guide and guardian of each level, up or down, and what the purposes are. And I'm not going to argue with any of those. What I'm going to say is that's not the real picture. That's not the full picture. And I saw it again and again and again, year after year after year, with both children and adults. There is something else beyond all of this construct. And that's what I'm going to get into with my next book. In my next book, finally, I'm going to research myself. I want to attack and learn more about my own life, my own death, my own research, what I found, what I felt, what I've seen, what I've tested over and over and over and over again. There's a truth there that I cannot define. There's a truth there that's above and beyond what anybody else can define as well. There's something else. Yeah, I used to be a professional hypnotist. I take people through past lives. I did stage work. And certainly when we get into past lives, and that can help a lot to understanding who we are and where we are now and what we have to learn, or it would be advisable for us to learn. We don't have to do anything, but it would be advisable. But there's more beyond that. There's a lot more beyond this idea of lives and souls and angels and archangels and heaven worlds and hell worlds. And it's that's what I'm interested in. And that's what I want to explore in my next book.
Can't wait. Thank you so much. We got a lot of questions. We got people raising their hands like crazy. No, this is good. It's all good stuff. I mean, I want to know more about that. I'm totally going to grab these different books and start looking at it. So let's go ahead and go to Matt. And you're unmuted.
Yes, thank you so much for the talk, PMH. I have a question about multiple near-death experiencers, because what I've seen is that you have near-death experiencers who have their own spiritual or psychic abilities after, but then you have multiple near-death experiencers who seem to be even more in tune with the spiritual world. So would you say that the more near-death experiences you have, the more you learn, or the more connected you are to that spiritual world?
The answer to that is no, and let me give you some examples. This one fellow, he was in a wheelchair when I finally was able to talk to him. I think he was like in his early 40s. I'm not sure, maybe early 30s. And he almost died numerous times in babyhood, as a child, again and again and again. He did die. They had to bring him back. Did die. Had to bring him back. He had, if I remember correctly, he had either 22 or 23 near-death experiences. And so I asked him, why did you have so many near-death experiences? And he said, they're my vitamin pills. They are what keeps me going. The idea that the more you have, the more you learn, nuts to that. You can have one and get the full message and get incredible experiences that are far beyond even those who have 10 or 12. My feeling is you get what you need at that moment in time. And if you need 10, you'll get 10. If you need 5, you'll get 5. Look, I had 3 in 3 months. Not in 3 years, 3 months. I needed a heavenly sledgehammer, and that's what I got. Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's beautifully said. Thanks, Matt. All right, let's go to Nancy. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Nancy. What's your question?
Oh, okay. My question is about when you talked about the breathing, not breathing, that was a real revelation to me because it happens to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in fact, I had 2 experiences, one when I was 4 and then another one when I was in my 50s. And when I was in my 50s, I just stopped breathing completely. And they kept trying to bring me back. And I kept thinking, no, I don't want to breathe. I don't want to breathe. But I have that happen to me all the time now where I'm just all of a sudden realize I'm not breathing. And do you know why that is? I mean,
Yeah.
what is your perception of why that happens, or why that, is there a purpose to it? Is it just?
Well, it's hard to say. Purpose, purpose is a big word. What I can say to you is it's natural. And if you get a hold of Karen Herrick's book, and it's Herrick, Karen Herrick, Dr. Karen Herrick. I'm sure you can get it, Google it. She lives, I think, in Red Bank, New Jersey. She's done a lot of extra work on that. I know that it has something to do with your survival. It has something to do with keeping your body in league with you being able to live out your life the way you want to live it, or need to live it, or the particular track that you're on. To finish that track, you need it. It will keep you breathing. It will keep your body operating. It will ensure your brain gets what it needs to think and to examine and to analyze. So I would call it a gift. I would say your normal number two, I would call it a gift. Number three, I would contact Karen Herrick.
Okay.
A little bit more than I can.
I think it has something to do with having 1 foot here and 1 foot there. It's like being in 2 dimensions at the same time and just sort of stepping over the line every now and then.
Well, that's part of your training. That's part of what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Again, I'd call it a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And the same thing happens with me a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, the same thing.
Of course.
And I thought something was wrong with me. I never told anyone, but
Yeah.
I had some outpatient surgery where I was awake, and they said, "Tamara, you should breathe." And I'm like, "I'm fine."
Yeah.
You're not breathing. They said, "You haven't breathed for 5 minutes." I'm like, "I'm fine," but
Why don't we talk about this?
I don't know, because I thought it was weird.
About this, you know.
Yeah, I just thought it was weird. I
talk more about it in my latest book, The Forever Angels, Near-Death Experiences in Childhood and Their Lifelong Impact. If you haven't read that book, I don't care how old you are, you're missing one of the best evidential work. Certainly one of the best on children, but on the near-death experience itself, that book challenges what we think we know about the near-death experience.
Huh.
Absolutely, read that book. And I do get into the breathing thing in that book.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of near-death experiencers that would probably like to chime in and probably would have their own say on that. So let's go to Sue. I'm going to unmute you. And we've got 3 people, so let's try to do it quickly if we can, because I really want to kind of, okay, we got 4 people. Kind of want to honor those people if we can, because they're burning questions. So go ahead.
Will do. So these could be simple yes or no's. PMH, thanks for your validation on the no tunnel. I did not experience a tunnel, and I did drown, and so it was quick for me. My question for you would be, I'm always curious if there was more that I did not remember, and I'm wondering, has any of your research conducted regression analysis to pull out more of what the near-death experiencer did not remember? And the second part is, do more death experiences or what people are shown, is that any indication, is there any science that indicates they're more of an advanced soul versus somebody who experiences something once?
I'll be careful of that stuff. First of all, let me say, gee, I'm trying to recall what you're saying here. Say it again real fast. What's the first one real fast?
Is regression analysis something that a person can do to learn more about their near-death experience?
Some say yes. I did not go the regression route to learn more about my own. I chose I chose dream work. But just the fact that you're making the choice begins the process. And I did a lot of writing. But for me, meditation was the best. It was absolutely the best. The second part again.
Does the more near-death experiences and more of what people are shown in those experiences have any indication on soul advancement?
This is a judgmental process, and that a judgmental thing, and I said that's why I backed up. be very careful about judgmental things. I could say yes and no. You know, be careful of that kind of stuff. Just be careful about that.
Thank you. I just read it somewhere that someone claimed that they had so many near-death experiences, they thought they were more advanced, and it really took me back.
No, no, a million times, a billion times, no. Absolutely not. You get what you need. I'm convinced of that.
Thank you.
Get what you need. That doesn't necessarily mean you're more advanced if you get 12 of them. It could mean, like me, you just had a harder head and needed to be kicked around more. Okay.
Thank you, Sue. And just to own my own 2 cents, things came out with me with dreams, but I did, to finish things up, did get regression, and it helped me immensely.
It helped some people, but
it helped me personally tremendously. So that's kind of up to the person, I suppose.
It's up to the person.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sue. Okay, let's go to our next person. We've got a line for you. We got a line going. All right. So let's go to Christine. I'm going to unmute you. What's your question?
Hi, RPA. PM, thank you for your message. I enjoyed it. My question is, can you experience a near-death experience but not consciously remember it?
Good question.
Can you experience a near-death experience but not consciously remember it? I just wrote an article about that very thing that was just published in the International Association for Near-Death Studies in their latest issue of Vital Signs. So I wrote an article just on that. The way you can tell is the after effects. Always, people, always. It's a pattern of after effects that validate the experience, not the other way around. The after effects are physiological as well as psychological. There's a whole list of them. I go through them in almost all my books. So it's the after effects that tell you whether or not you had a near-death experience. You may have gone through an automobile accident, maybe a drowning, and you died and came back, but there's no memory or thought of ever having had a near-death experience. Go through, look at the after effects. If you match the pattern of physiological and psychological after effects, chances are you did indeed have a near-death experience.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A little research there and some thinking, but that at least she pointed you in the right direction. I'll use that to point people in the right direction to look at the after effects. It's great advice, so thank you. Thanks, Christine. All right, so let's go to Alma. I'll lower your hand and unmute you. Go ahead, Alma. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Alma.
Oh, unmute myself. Okay.
Okay, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay.
How are you?
Hi, Tamara. It was so beautiful meeting you. I recall that P.M.H, you have been just, the angel God sent to me, because it was your project that helped me to open up about my early childhood NDEs. And in those, as you know, P.M.H, I was suffocated and by another person. And I went into the arms of Jesus. And I recall them because the last one was I was 4.5. So when Tamara invited me to come on today and specifically said it was about the breathing, the non-breathing, I said, oh my gosh, I have to hear P.M.H because she is the expert. Because you are, to me, the expert. And I don't know what to say to people when for example, I was interviewed a couple of years ago for an article, and that gentleman asked, what is the hardest thing about your after effects? I said, well, sometimes I feel like I'm not breathing. And he just mulled over that, and he said, no, I mean, really, what is it that's really hard about your after effects? What's the most difficult after effect? I said, well, the fact that I feel like I'm not breathing. And then he again said, well, is there something about, like, do you not want to be around people? Is light very difficult? I said, it's because I don't feel like I'm breathing.
Yeah, he's not
I
here.
need to emphasize it. So what do I tell people when they ask me and they don't really get it the first time?
First of all, get him the book, The Forever Angels. It's part of that mechanism that ensures that we continue to live out the life we have. Without that power of the vagus nerve to keep us alive, and it does that through our not breathing. Because we don't breathe, we get that extra push from the vagus nerve. It's a survival blessing. It enables you to keep going. And I want to say very quickly here, when I wrote that book, there were so many cases of child abuse that I uncovered. It just blows your mind. And read the book. Especially for those of you who are psychologists or psychiatrists, but all of you. When a child, of course, any age of person, but especially children, leave their body when they're being attacked or raped, or a thorn goes through their hand, or what, they leave their body. That is not a psychic ability. That is a survival mechanism. Hear me. When you leave your body, when out of fear or being attacked or hurting, that is a survival mechanism that enables your soul, your basic personality, to leave that body. It protects your soul and your body. It is a survival mechanism that enables you to continue living. So I hope psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists everywhere are hearing this. It's in the book as well. We sometimes overlook what's really going on here when we talk about psychic or intuitive abilities. Bear in mind, they're part of your survival skills you were given at birth. Now, in our cultures today, most of those skills are shoveled out the door. We're told not to pay any attention to them. But in our forebears, those were survival skills that enabled us to continue living our lives. So everybody has psychic or intuitive abilities. Some have more than others. But we need those to survive. They're nothing spooky about them. They are mechanisms that enable us to survive in the body we are wearing in a healthy way.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Did that? I know we could talk to her all day, but I hope that answered your question.
PMH, I'm case 55 in your book, and I just thank you so much because it's helped me to relax, finally, to tell that little part of my story. Well, it's a big part, but you've helped me to grow and to become wise and to live a more full life. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm hugging you, and I'm kissing you.
Thank you, Alma. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And we should connect. I also had a childhood NDEs and similar what she just talked about, and Jesus met me, so we should talk.
Yes, we should.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bless you.
All right, so here's Mark. Let's see, Mark, Mark Ferrantino, the scientist. Let me lower your hand, and I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. I'm on your website right now, PMH, and this could be just a coincidence. I don't know. I'd like to know more about it, but I'm watching your panels flash by, and on the marketplace of NDE-related items, I see that you have in the corner there the images of the Marion pattern. Are you familiar with that at all? Did you put those images on there? Because they were in my book. And anybody that knows about that, I'm real interested in it. Oh, can't hear her.
I don't know. She's answering somebody. Just
Oh.
give it just a second. We'll find out. Okay, here we go. All right. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, here we go.
She's in there where you are. It is, she had a near-death experience in a balloon flying over the Alps. She suffocated, and she was given all of this. She's been working on it all of this time, and she's now been able to bring it out in a way that it can help teachers better teach their kids in classes. It can help people live their lives better. Why am I blanking out on her name?
Lynn Claire Dennis.
What's the name?
Lynn Claire Dennis.
Dennis is her last name.
Right. Lynn Claire is her first name.
Lynn Claire, yes, Lynn Claire. Yes. Get in the contact her.
Oh, I have. I know her well.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the physical or the physics aspect of that pattern she saw.
Yeah, she's brought that through.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was wondering if you just knew anything in detail about that, and maybe you don't. That's fine.
Well, I would.
That was interesting. That you had.
Yeah, I would contact her because she has worked with physicists and a lot of other people for decades now, and she has been able to refine that. So do indeed talk to her and get more information because she does have it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we've got one last question. This is perfect. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and that would be Nicole. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Such an honor to be on this call with you and with everyone today. Going back to what you were talking about, the being breathless. I myself, being a practicing meditator and yogi, and the way that I have been trained, I have experienced just minimally, but I have experienced when I would go into meditation and I would just notice, oh, I'm not breathing. I would go into that breathless state. And in that particular, the way that I understand it, well, there's two things. I would go into this state of breathlessness, and if I, though, kind of my own personal reaction would be like, oh my gosh, I'm not breathing, I would notice that there, in that state, there was the one behind me, that's the observer of in the breathless state and experiencing that breathless state, and almost not a separate me, but the more, I don't know, earthly me, I guess, just kind of interrupting that by interrupting that keen observation of the breathless state and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not breathing. And that would trigger me to come out of that experience. But as I was in that, yeah, I feel, and the way that I've been, you know, that you're entering into just higher levels of consciousness, super consciousness, and that sort of thing. And so, because you have experienced it for much longer periods of time, what do you feel that you are, yes, absolutely experiencing super consciousness, higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of being? What say you on that?
Well, for me, it was a curiosity. And I just enjoyed it. I got a big kick out of it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But as far as higher states of consciousness, I didn't have to do anything to get that. It was just open.
Right.
Still does.
Right. And I feel like, yes, that's what that brings. You don't, there's no, you just enter into it and there it is.
This is my world now. This is just the world I live in. Everything talks to me. My plants, my walls, my, you know, my pots and pans, my sink, everything talks to me. There's this conversation going on all the time. And I can plug in if I want to. I live in a world that is highly populated. Don't tell our government that. You know, they want us to all live alone. I live in a world that's highly populated by all kinds of beings. Everything talks, everything has movement, everything has intelligence. And it has helped me to realize how lucky I am to be a human being living in a human world, living in the world I'm in now with all of this stuff, positive, negative. How lucky I am to be here and to learn and to grow and to absorb and to bless and to build and to be a part of this incredible dynamic that we call the earth world and earth beings. And I just feel so blessed to be here.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's very grounding, because we keep talking about the other side, and you know, we especially a lot of near-death experiencers, we kind of want to experience that. But isn't that the whole reason why we're all here? Is to experience this world, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So that's so key what you just said. With all of this talk, we have to actually be a part of this world, don't we?
Fabulous, fabulous. I can tell what's going on in the world right now and what cycle we're in, just walking out my door and watching the tones and the colors and the hues change, and to listen to the chatter of the trees and the plants and the animals, and watch the sky and the rivers that occur in the sky. And I know where we are and what's going on in the universe, and it's just awesome.
Yes.
It's just awesome.
Yes.
It's awesome to be a human being living in a human universe.
Yes, it's very true. It's funny. I feel a harmony outside that I've never felt before, and I don't think it's just within me. I feel like there's a shift. I can feel it. Yeah, it just there's a harmony. Do you guys feel that? Yes or no? Do you feel like it's something changed? It feels sweeter. It feels sweeter outside. It feels like animals. Everybody's happier. The trees. Everybody's happier.
Because there's less stuff in the air.
Yeah.
You know, they had to shut everything down.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. They had to shut the world down to make that happen, but we get the harmony. I think we're working on that.
People have their jobs back. But look how the earth is rejoicing that everything got shut down.
Right. The oceans are more or cleaner. It's just, what was it? I read an article in India that the elephants now are more natural walking around, and it was in Thailand, and they're walking around more in their natural habitat. So, so we hit the reset button. So we should take advantage of that. Well, look, we've gone through our questions. Everybody's trying to be polite. I'm sure there's a ton of questions, but everybody's trying to be polite since we've gone over the time. I cannot thank you enough. I have to tell you, I've been around personalities, celebrities, where you go my whole life, but I was really starstruck to interview today because I think I'm like Alma. I'm like, you're fantastic. You've given so much validity, and we don't always talk about the trauma, but you don't really have safe places to look with the childhood things in particular. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only for today, but for the research that you do and how brave you are. And you just hold the torch for everybody that follows behind. So thank you for being you and putting it out there and being fearless.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having the voice you have, doing what you do, having the program you have, and bringing people together. This is good.
You are so welcome. I support anyone. You know that. I'm accessible. Most people know how to get a hold of me too. And I will make this recording available for everyone. But look, I support anyone in their spiritual journey, whether it's near death, spiritually transformative experiences, or if they just have a question. And they can get a hold of you at pmhatwater.com. And I've got to immediately get on Amazon to order 2 more of your books. So I can, especially the Labyrinth, I've got to go through this Labyrinth.
It's PMH at pmhatwater.com.
Okay, say that again. PMH
at pmhatwater.com.
Oh, for email. PMH at pmhatwater.com.
Yes, and please don't don't send a lot of emails because that's really tough to answer them. But I'll do the best I can.